now called to order. Janine, would you please call the roll?
Calling the roll, Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Schrein. Mr. Schrein is absent. Mr. Brady.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown is absent. You do not have a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that council members Baker and Miller are in attendance.
All right, thank you. And we will save our approval of the minutes for when we actually have quorum shortly. We have no matters referred to committee, but we do have our presentation today. So again, welcome everyone that's here today. Welcome. I'm really excited to have us here today and share the evaluation results of our CTAG initiative. I think I'd like to start by just giving us a little history of how we got to this point. And I see Principal from Tammy from Garfield Heights, and I'll share with you this all started for me back in Garfield. There was there were 50 young children who were fighting in the local county library in the parking lot and misbehaving within the library itself. And this was 4 years ago. And it was a beautiful library, newly built, and we did ribbon cuttings and all of those nice things. But again, 30 days later, this activity took place, and it was disrupting, obviously, to the community. There were community meetings, concerns about the parents and the children, and again, what were the parents' role and where were they when all this was happening? And they actually said, Jones, what are you going to do about it? And asked me to come up to the front of the room, and I said to them, I hear your concerns, and I understand the role, as you said, that parents play in the lives of our children and their children in particular. I said, and we all know that the county, we take children for abuse and neglect, but we also quietly work to strengthen family dynamics. Let me go back and research and see what I can find to be part of the solution. And that's what I did. I went back and searched, and I found a national initiative called Closing the Achievement Gap Initiative. And with that, I said, that's what I'd like to bring to the table to be a part of the solution, and not just Garfield, but in throughout the entire community. So as a result, we moved monies and budgeted dollars to Family and Children First Council, who is here with us today. Those dollars were given to the 4 schools that are here today. And through that, those schools hired the company Students of Promise. And Students of Promise has implemented the services needed to meet this initiative, to close the gap, to help our children reach their full potential. That is the gap, helping them reach, again, their full potential. And through that, we've done many things like taking field trips to historical Black colleges. We have gone to movies and Cavs games, and just you name you. I hope to hear some of the things from you all today. But as a result, I like to believe we've had a positive impact on the lives of our students to help them to, again, continue starting with 9th grade through high school to graduate and point them in the right direction to to constructive opportunities and have a successful life. So those are the things that we've done over the last 4 years. And at the heart of what this county does is health and human services, which to me means human development. We do other things like economic development, community development, but investing in people is what this county does. This is your local, it's not state, it's local government at the county. So to be able to do this and laser focus what we do well into our school systems has been somewhat of a novel idea at this moment at the high school level. But again, I believe it's been a very successful activity. And what we're again here today is to hear from those who have been doing the evaluation, from the parents and teachers who have been a part of this, sharing with us what they've been, what their experience has been. So again, that's why we're here. And I'd like to start off by inviting some to come forward to share with us. I know we have our mentors. Maybe we could acknowledge some of our parents or teachers or students, parents and students that are here who might be willing to just come forward and tell us what this program has meant to you.
How you doing? DeAndre Thomas, a senior at Warrensville. Stools of Promise is a safe place for me. I go down to Ms. Netta's room, talk to her. She helped me with my work. I go down there when I have a free period during my lunch just to talk to her. So it's helped me grow socially because I bound with the other schools on exposure field trips. I've been to D.C., Atlanta, Detroit, different places, explore different colleges, different opportunities. It gives you many opportunities. After school program with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, where we mentor over at the middle schools, the middle school students. It really helps you gain exposure and give you plenty of opportunities just to grow as a human being. And Students of Promise, I just feel like it's a great program. It's beneficial to all. It helps grow you emotionally, physically, socially, anything you need. Ms. Netta is there to help you with it. That's what no hesitation, anything you need, she's there for you.
Excellent, excellent. We appreciate it. And Maya, we appreciate you and all that you've done. Had the opportunity to go on some of these trips with Maya and the other linkage coordinators, and again, to see them at work. They do a fantastic job. Okay, thank you. Okay. Also, let me just share with you, if you've parked in our parking garage, we have free parking passes. So anyone that needs one, please talk to Levine Ross, who is sitting to my right and to my left and your right. All right. At this moment, I think we're still waiting on a few others to arrive, but at this moment, I'd like to invite our evaluator. Once we got started, and I'll share this, once we got started, and I started to see how well this was working, I said, I want some hard evaluation, some serious numbers of what we've been doing, so that those in the community who not only just hear the good stories, but can see the tangible numbers behind what this program has meant. So we again moved dollars towards Case Western Reserve, who did our evaluation for us, and Chris Dorman was that lead person. So at this moment, I'd like to invite you forward to share your presentation with us.
Excuse me, Mr. Jones, I'd like to
Yes.
announce that Ms. Simon is joining the meeting and you do have a quorum.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm Chris Dorman from Case Western Reserve University, the Begun Center for Violence Prevention, Research, and Education. While I guess I was the lead point person doing the evaluation, there was a good-sized team backing me up, but I'd just like to thank some of them who are here with us today. Dr. Dan Flannery, the director of our research center, is here, and he was one of the co-PIs in the work. Two of our research associates, Tiffany Walker and Angela Goldner, are here. They were really in the trenches with the data, meeting with data specialists, really understanding the context of some of the data and some of the structure. Their work was invaluable. Not with us today, but Xiao Ding, she was one of our field placement research interns who also helped with transcripts and our interviews. Also, certainly the partners, FCFC is our partner, Charmaine Pope, the lead program officer, who's with us, and the director, Robin Martin at FCFC. Mr. Ivory, linkage coordinators, I know you met one earlier. The data specialists at the schools, I wish they could be here because they had a lot of the hours behind the work and numbers you're gonna see. And certainly those staff and the students and parents that completed our surveys and feedback and spent the time. The work I'm going to show you today is based off of enter, sorry.
Dan?
Yeah,
There we go. I might have pushed too many
Mr.
buttons.
Chairman and my colleagues, just before you start, I just want to make everybody aware that Chris Dorman also was the lead researcher for the child abuse prevention needs assessment that we did for our regional 4-county Child Abuse Prevention Council, and did an outstanding job, and we came up with an excellent report. So I just want to publicly thank him for that effort as well.
Thank you very much. That was also a in-depth project, still going. I think there's 3 more years on that. So the work I'm going to talk to you today about comes from a larger 70-page full report. I'm going to hit the highlights, and I keep it sort of at the program level to understand the outcomes rather than kind of individual schools, because there were a lot of differences in indicators across schools, across grades, across gender. So I'll give you some of the highlights, but really kind of a program view, and I'm available for any one-on-one or any kind of follow-up that gets into some of those details that we can't answer here today. So the program was talked about a little bit. I'll hit a few of the highlights just to give everyone an orientation. So the target population is African Americans, Latino students that are entering high school with risk factors such as high absenteeism, tardiness, suspensions, falling below proficiency levels, repeating grades, failing core areas, having juvenile court involvement. And there are specific kind of criteria and operationalized measures for those factors. You don't have to have those risk factors, but if you do, that's the group they're targeting. About 3/4 of the youth are identified as targeted with high risk factors and in need of support. One of the key aspects of the Students of Promise program, also called Closing the Achievement Gap, is integrated supports within the school and the support and resources with the family and community. It's an integrated. Some of the key components: linkage coordinators in the schools. That's a big part of this model, what makes it unique from some of the other models. They offer mentoring and high school navigation. There's a dedicated classroom space. So there's, as one of the gentlemen had spoken, a kind of a safe place and a supportive place that they can go to in each of the schools. And that, in some of the research and the data, showed to be a very important piece of the project. The intervention involves, the support of linkage coordinators, social emotional learning opportunities. Another unique part of the Students of Promise is the cultural enrichment and field trips, the exposure to places outside of the community that some of these youth, haven't left their community and they're exposed. Teachers get support in some of the day-to-day challenges. Disruptive behavioral, emotional situations that linkage coordinators are really part of the team to help bring that focus back to the academic needs. There's also the Summer Bridge program, if some of you are aware of Starting Point and some of the out-of-school time work that they do. Summer Bridge is integrated with that work, and it gives students kind of a bridge between years to stay engaged. And then also offered parent engagement workshops and linkages to community resources. So as researchers, when we want to look at an intervention, we need to understand the context in which it operates and what some of the expectations and inputs and outputs. We call it, sometimes you'll see a logic model. Theory of change is another way of communicating kind of the steps and things. I'll go through this quickly, but realize that the Students of Promise is one model of many types around the country that are addressing student needs. The consensus is that unmet non-academic needs like well-being, health, and safety can undermine academic achievement if they're not addressed. And Students of Promise works to address some of that. And there's a lot of consensus in the research that caring adults and some of these supportive programs matter, and they matter a lot. Where there isn't necessarily consensus is what exactly you should be doing when and how much and in what ways. The research is still coming together kind of on the specific components of that. One of the things that makes the Students of Promise program unique is its focus on African American and Latinos. I'll just share this one quick data point. Its history, as was introduced, began with African American males in the 8th grade coming in, noticing the achievement gap between the performance of those individuals versus their peers. This is current data from 2017 from the U.S. Department of Education showing the percentage of Black, Hispanic, and white individuals at proficiency in math and reading or above at the 8th grade. So I think that data speaks plainly about the need for programs like this, especially those targeting African Americans. This is a quick map to show the schools. There are 4 schools: Cleveland Heights, Cleveland University Heights, Warrensville Heights, Maple Heights, Garfield Heights. And you can see the council districts where those, you probably know that, but it's here for the audience to see where those school districts fall. We'll be focused on those 4 schools, high schools, and the data from 2014-15, 15-16, and 2016-17. But the majority of our data are from 2016-17. A little bit about some of the data sources. We had interviews with linkage coordinators. We collected roster data, so the Students of Promise administrators gave us 3 years of cohort data, who was enrolled, and demographics and things about them. We did surveys with students, teachers, parents. We used the developmental asset profile, which is a survey or an index we use on youth development, positive youth development. FCFC uses it in a number of their programs, so we incorporated it into this program. We have field trip data where we would do pre and post surveys, and the bus ride up and the bus ride back made a really contained kind of place to get that data, so they would fill that up on the way and complete it on the way back. And then we also use the academic motivational survey. It was introduced in the larger state CTAG initiative. And then we get efforts to outcomes data from Summer Bridge and school data from the data specialists. A couple brief things about limitations. Whenever you present research, you don't want to go beyond the data. So I want to just point out a couple limitations in the data. These groups were already in place, so randomization was not possible. So our findings are descriptive in nature and correlational. We can't necessarily be causal in our language. There are a lot of differences across schools and contexts, so those create threats to internal validity of things not measured, unknown other supports within the schools, even within the family and the school. And also, one of the things we found out in this effort was students really receive different amounts of what we call dosage or treatment or time with linkage coordinators. So that variance, unless it's measured well, it's hard to know who's getting how much of what when to make the impacts that you've seen. We did create, and this was in the RFP, an at-risk comparison group. We looked at those that fell in the bottom quartile based on GPA in the previous year and how they fell for GPA and graduation. And then we also looked at the bottom quartile for the current 16-17 year for some of the other indicators like disciplinary and suspensions. That comparison group is really more of an at-risk reference group. I think it's helpful, but on further analysis, we found significant differences in age, race, gender, percents having an IEP plan, just those things that make them caution and when interpreting the results, because they are not necessarily directly comparable. All the schools met with us, very helpful. Everyone supplied data, but schools differ greatly in the resources and capacity to meet some of these individualized requests. So not every indicator in every format was able to come in, which made it kind of challenging if you want to compare everything apples to apples. But we did our best to do individual level looks at data when we couldn't compare with all the schools. And then not all the surveys have high N sizes. So, we're dealing with smaller sample size on some of those surveys. In terms of enrollment and demographic data, as we go into the results, one of the highlights here is that enrollment has increased in the first implementation year, 131 youth across the 4 schools, and in the most recent year, 236, and those numbers, or at least the current number, can always change because students are coming and going at different points in the year, but usually most enrollment is in place in the first quarter. Gender, where it started off as a predominantly African-American male, 8th grade male, It is now balanced, fairly balanced between men and women. And in terms of race, African Americans make up 96% of the sample. Whites and Latinos, others make up 2%. In terms of targeted status, I guess this is an important variable, I think, because when you have what used to be eligibility criteria, now are kind of targeted status criteria, it's important to look at those differences. So I guess in one way, a targeted status that's decreasing, kind of been slowly decreasing, represents more inclusive, more opportunity for other school students to get involved, but it also, you start to move a little bit further away from your core group. So that's a balance that, program administrators will need to think through and just keep an eye on as they continue to offer programs. So here's the section on outcomes and some of the highlights. So one of the main areas everyone is most interested in is promotion and graduation. Overall, from the 3 of the 4 schools that we were able to combine the data on, 79% of those youth that were enrolled in the program in 2016-17 either promoted to the next grade or graduated. For seniors, that number is exceptionally high. 97.1% of all the enrolled seniors graduated in that year. And our at-risk reference group, 11.9 percentage points higher for our SOP group compared to that reference group, the bottom quartile on GPA from the previous year. That number would be 67.1%. In terms of grade point average, this is consistent with some of the other CTAG research that came out earlier from the statewide results. GPA had a consistent pattern across all 3 schools and for every year, climbing slowly but surely, all in the right direction, and for every school every year. So from the implementation year to the end year, that went up 0.2, and for the at-risk comparison group, it was a full 0.5 point higher for the SOP youth. In terms of attendance, this is probably the indicator that has the most mixed results and challenging results that I think administrators and schools and everyone want to take a look at in the program. We had 2 schools that went up significantly in the number of unexcused mean absences in 2016 compared to the previous year. One school by an average of 4 days, another by over 2 weeks. Another school decreased by 11 days, and another school remained stable from the previous year. In the data, you can look at chronic absenteeism. It just looks at combined misses. And this population, 36.4, so just over a third in 2016-17 had missed 20 days or more of school. The newest data that'll be coming out in this year is undergoing a transformation because of House Bill 410, and it's going to translate everything into the number of hours attended or not attended, and that'll standardize some of the ways, because schools aren't always the same in how they calculate their attendance data. So it's an important finding to keep watch. Positive results on suspensions and disciplinary actions. There was a 17.2 percentage point decrease in the percent of youth that had a suspension in 2016-17 compared to the implementation year 2014. And you can see stepwise how those numbers decreased each year. So in 2014-15, 53.8% of all the SOP youth in the data had at least one suspension, and then the next year that was 40.4, and then down to 36.6. So a slow, steady progression, and that's good news. Of note is the fact that 85.3% of the freshmen enrolled in the program, however, had an official violation. So they were really a dramatic difference from their older peers in the program. So I think additional targeted programming aimed at those behavior elements for freshmen coming in as they assimilate into that high school environment is going to be critical based on this indicator. And that's consistent with violations for freshmen everywhere, not just just this program, but you can really see it in this data. The developmental asset profile that we use to look at positive youth development is a 58-item questionnaire. It looks into a number of domains. So when you think of well-being and development, it's not just one thing, but a number of areas. So you have external assets, support, empowerment, boundaries, expectations, constructive use of time, and then internal commitment to learning, which is particularly important for this program, Students of Promise, positive values and positive identity, and then social competencies, which is a really important internal element that youth understand socialization and social norms and interacting with peers. Our DAP outcome for SOP is average to above average overall. 63.6% scored in the excellent or good category. They have different tiers based on the total score. On 7 of the 8 assets you just saw, the SOP youth actually score above the national norms provided by the Search Institute. 2 of the strength areas, the highest kind of performing assets, both within the sample and relative to the norms, are positive identity. And that has an important tie into some of the cultural enrichment programs that the program's offering, a belief in your self-worth and that you have control over things that happen to you and understanding your own identity. And then also commitment to learning. So that's a strong foundation to build on in the academic realm, that these youth are committed to learning at a level that has them engaged in the program and coming and wanting help and seeking help and staying with the program. The greatest challenge or lowest asset in the set was social competency. And these are really important skills that we need to focus on in the program, how to interact effectively with others and make difficult decisions and handle new situations. The academic motivational survey was a tool used in the initial statewide CTAG implementation, and Mr. Ivory wanted to use it in this program, and it's a good tool. One of the highlights that really jumped out to us as researchers was utilization of the classroom space that's so important. And when you see sort of a bimodal distribution or a higher frequencies on the tails, it's how you've got maybe 2 different sorts of needs or youth in the population. You've got a group that maybe comes once a week, and then you've got another group that's coming in every day, 5 or more times per week. So that's an important finding, an important distinction that we need to understand more about how those needs differ and what's going on in that scenario. Additional data points from the academic motivational survey. Very high satisfaction, and 96% are planning to continue until they graduate. The Students of Promise program has a 72% retention rate year over year. So 72% of the youth from the previous year are back the next. You're going to have attrition due to a number of reasons out of their control, moving out of the district and other reasons. But 86% agreed that they do homework because it's important, and that's part of that commitment to learning. 100% loved their linkage coordinators. It didn't read that way, but that's how I interpret it. 77% agreed that their interactions with teachers are positive. And then a couple data points of interest, I think, to talk about, at the program level is interaction with peers. So that's sort of lower than you'd like to see. And then 46% of the students either disagree with the statement or neutral that their teachers are fair. So that's an important finding. Kind of what is it about kind of that feeling of fairness and kind of delving in it. So I think future research and future discussions need to understand what is that construct of fairness and how they're thinking of it. So the cultural enrichment exposure field trips, critical part of the program, makes it unique and powerful. We see field trips normally as kind of fun social experiences. These certainly have those aspects, but these are very knowledge-based, attitude-based, working on interests and awareness and exposure. A couple that we developed pre and post surveys. We would do a content analysis of what the experience was. They'd send us the itinerary and the agenda. We go to the websites, explore the features. Tiffany did a lot of this work. We just kind of broke down, what are they going to see? What are they going to experience? How do we tap that? How do we develop questions? And we do a pre and a post on that, and then some retrospective questions that would ask the impact, their perceived impact of that experience. Here's a couple a couple field trips out of the group. The Hidden Figures film screening was a movie about some African-American females and their role in NASA. College tours at historically black colleges, universities. You have Morehouse College, a few others, University of Toledo. The Civil Rights Tour, they went on Alabama on a full tour down there. The Detroit Motown Museum, Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville, and also locally the Maltz Museum of Jewish History and a trip out to Amish culture. So they were learning about other cultures as well. Few highlights here for kind of powerful highlights to take away from some of the field trip results. For example, the Hidden Figures film, at the pretest, 7% of the students strongly agreed that they were interested in STEM. After viewing the film, that number went up to 28%. So a number of students kind of were more interested after. After a civil rights tour, 77% strongly agreed that they were aware of key events around the civil rights movement. So that was a 30% increase from the pretest. Before a historically black college and university tour, 57 strongly agreed that those colleges are important. Afterward, 83% strongly agreed. And then a trip to the Maltz Museum, 9% strongly agreed that learning about Jewish history was important. After the trip, 22% strongly agreed. Summer Bridge is a program. There's 3 different programs within Summer Bridge, and that Starting Point coordinates. Reading RAM, Ohio Guidestone, and Golden Ciphers. Each one deals with sort of a non-academic setting. They're out of school, they're in the summer, but they're working on skills and social skills and building socialization, learning about just decision makings and different things. Each program uses experiential learning in different ways. We're Reading RAM, there's a film experience at the end. Ohio Guidestone does a lot of group discussions and role playing. And Golden Ciphers really gets into the kind of cultural aspects that some of the youth may not know about or could explore more deeply with rites of passage. Everyone loves Summer Bridge. 98% were very satisfied or satisfied. 97% stated they would use what they learned in the future. Quick kind of slide. This just gives you a breakdown of the types of activity. So behind the scenes, Starting Point uses efforts to outcomes, a database that captures both attendance and types of activity. Of note, I think in the pie chart is social skills, networking within group, teaming is the largest proportion of what they do, and I think that's one of the large proportions of what they need. So that's a good match. And then as a separate group, they also do the DAP, and they score higher than the norms and higher than their larger peers that don't do Summer Bridge. So it's a really important aspect of the program, and I hope attendance and support for that increases, because their numbers on the DAP are higher. Some of the information that we got from teachers and schools in a feedback survey. All the schools participated, but we had sort of a small end size. Some of that had to do with just how busy folks are at the end of the year, and we also sent it back out at the beginning of the following year. But it's a tough time to administer surveys to school personnel at the end of the year. But we wanted to capture some of the end of the program feedback. Teachers, 91% indicated they saw behavioral improvements of the students that were enrolled in SOP and CTAG. 69% saw academic improvement. 83% agreed that the program provided a level of help to them. Some other data of note, 54% indicated that they had reached out to a linkage coordinator, or a linkage coordinator reached out to them. So I think this is important data for discussion for the program folks, that half of those students aren't directly collaborating, at least under this sample of feedback. And just under 10% could recall participating in a planned group meeting about a specific student or event. So a takeaway from that is teachers like the program, they want more of it, they want more information about the purpose and roles and who is involved and how to recommend students. We did interviews with linkage coordinators to help understand kind of the work they do, which is significant and varied. And that first quote was a theme we heard loud and clear, that there's really no typical day. They say there will be students lined up at their door in the morning as they come into the program waiting to talk to them, and they don't know what's coming through that door, but they're there and they meet the challenge. And some other quotes about, they don't have other supports, and linkage coordinators might be that one caring adult, that really makes a difference in their life. And linkage coordinators want, in the feedback they gave us, everyone in the school, we talk about target and non-target, but everybody in the school is challenged at some point socially and emotionally and different things that could benefit from the program. And then something we heard universally is parent involvement. They just really wanted more parent involvement. It's a really important piece that they would increase. A couple more slides left. We're almost through. Linkage coordinators told us what are the most important skills for the job, and by far the two takeaways are respect and trust. We heard that from everybody and in different ways, stated over and over, that these students trust the linkage coordinators in a way that is different from parents and peers and school officials, that the emotional needs and support are really important to develop as that trust between linkage coordinator and the student. We did in the interviews, we did content areas where we looked at kind of categories of being a linkage coordinator, their role, the skills, the time, the hardest parts, their capacity, how many students are too much, what's right, not enough, trying to get an idea what their sense was. And there was variance on the number of caseload or capacity for that. The types of training and outcomes that they see happening, and then process in another category of the interviews, how do you do the work? So you kind of have the what on one side and the how. And in the full 70-page report, there's about a 15-page section that pulls that out in detail. One of our findings up front, that small font, one of the findings up front is we want to understand the variance, what exactly, who's getting how much of what, when, and how, and tapping into that dosage. So we introduced a support log on a random sample of about 5 to 10 youth per linkage coordinator over a semester, and sort of coded it after the fact to see what those activity logs were like. It was like they'd come into the room, and after they left, they'd tell us a little bit about the experience. And the highlights from that are the academic support. So they're doing most of their work, even though they're available and they get texts at all hours and weekends, and they go to field trips and other outside of school. Most of their work is happening in the school. They do a lot with peer-to-peer support. So think about the social challenges. You've got somebody in an argument with somebody else, and who's going to help resolve the emotions and help them over that initial stage. And linkage coordinators are doing a lot of that peer-to-peer support across students. And also planning. They come into those linkage coordinators in the classroom, and they're talking about CTAG events coming up. They're talking about, what am I doing this summer? Jobs, summer bridge. So those were the kind of the highest percentages in this coding. We looked at other ways to code the data as we were seeing different types of support. This emotional support was coming in strongest of all the different types of things they could be doing. So in the research, we looked at different types of support. You have tangible types of support, listening support. Task challenge support is an area that you'll see in the next slide that's pretty strong. And that's where the linkage coordinators get the youth to explore what they're feeling, like challenge their emotion. Like, you're saying these things are happening, but let's talk about what really happened, what you're feeling. So that's part of that process to really get to the emotions and support behind what's causing maybe a behavioral or an emotional type of crisis. When we put the data against those types, we took the support log data and then ran it against these different content elements. Listening support, and emotional challenge were by far the most common occurrences. So when you think about dosage, that's what linkage coordinators are doing the most of, that emotional support. So in sum, I guess I encourage you to read the full report, but similar to the other research, CTAG Students of Promise is a promising model. The results generally positive. A few kind of challenging areas that in a balanced evaluation you talk about and you bring up. We see a lot of strengths with those external internal assets. Certainly the linkage coordinators as a caring adult being there, the enrichment trips and the powerful effect that had on their lives. I think we need more focus on what's going on with absenteeism and collaboration directly kind of with the schools to the next level. I think something that would help is fidelity guidelines to the SOP model, really measuring kind of how much of what should be happening when, with whom, or at least understanding the differences when it doesn't, and measuring the types of student supports in a way that we can look at relative to the outcomes we're seeing. I think up front, we need to do more to identify and document the risk factors up front and maybe apply change in those specific risk factors to the individual student over time to see if that initial concern, changes over time. And also just continue to collect and work with school data. I think we learned a lot in that first effort, and we have some folks helping us. Dr. Harris is part of a transition team that's helping look at the next phase of the research and how to analyze that school data or collect it. And we can set benchmarks for the program over time to see quality improvement. That's my last slide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. At this moment, I'm going to open up questions to my colleagues, if there are any questions. Councilman Miller.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dorman, I'd like to thank you for that comprehensive report, and it's obviously a very important program. The need is clearly out there, and my question is whether you have, there's an awful lot of things in life where 20% of the effort produces 80% of the results. It just kind of is a theme. My question is, do you have any information as to what particular elements are primarily responsible for producing the positive outcomes achieved, and are there ways that this program could be adjusted or restructured so that you get a more cost-effective production of favorable outcomes?
I would say integration in the schools seems to be a big return on effort, where some of the linkage coordinators would tell us relationships they would have with teachers that were just great relationships. It opened up a tunnel or a pipeline of student support and help and just direct referrals and kind of understanding back and forth and working with the students. So I think more integration and collaboration kind of directly with the schools, even if it's just sort of a structured way to keep updates and lines of communication going, would help. And I think Summer Bridge is also, I'm seeing very good performance in some of the outcomes data in Summer Bridge, and kind of having them out of that school environment, maybe all the stresses and things that they're experiencing, and getting kind of in a different setting and working on those social skills and decision making and things. Just, I think that's you're getting a lot of return for what you're paying for with that. I think those are the two that come to mind, but I would certainly want to hear from the others, like Linkage coordinators are doing the direct work as well. Do you have any thoughts?
If I could just chime in and just to add to that, CTAG was not my first effort to address this issue. When I first took office, there was a young lady Angela Davis, who helped me to get elected. And as soon as I was in office, she said, "Pernell, we need to help the children in our neighborhood who are dropping out of school. They're not graduating. I'm afraid they'll be victims of gun violence," which was a reality that I knew. That was certainly a possibility, and other negative activities. I want to do something. So we brought together a lot of the county resources I was just learning about, and we met at a local church, and we were going to engage those youth. And this was what I would call community-based. And it didn't work all that well. It didn't get a lot of involvement with the youth, that targeted population. And again, it just didn't work very well. But then this came and an opportunity to revisit. But this time, having been in office a little longer and learning how to work the levers of this office, we made it school-based, or as Chris just said, engage the student. So the actual practice of having the classroom that he described, placing where the children have already taken the first step of being in school, was much more effective. If there are children who are truant, well, there are resources to bring them back to school. and they are part of our targeted audience. So the concept of being school-based as opposed to community-based, which can certainly be very effective. School-based certainly has been one of the best practices right here, along with, as he said, our linkage coordinators who have gained the trust and respect of our students. So as we continue to ask questions, I'd like to take a moment and ask, I know Maya Netters is here, and I saw Aaron Mims and the linkage coordinator. If you're here, could you just stand up for a moment, just so that we can acknowledge you? Great. And I don't want to forget Marcus and Romy. They're not here at the moment, but those linkage coordinators, they're all doing a fantastic job. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Storman, one other question. Do you have any information or opinion on whether this is the right age at which to start the intervention, or should it be earlier?
I think it's fabulous that upwards of 97% of the seniors had graduated. So it's definitely working with those older youth. And I saw that in the CTAG data, or in the statewide CTAG evaluation data, that each consecutive year tended to bring about additional outcomes, like more positive outcomes. So you're better to have 2 years of the program than 1, and 3 than 2. So targeting young, I guess, would be, to answer your question, targeting younger youth to have them get those cumulative years in to get the biggest return later would be my answer to that. So I think targeting 8th grade freshmen is a wise plan.
Okay, thank you.
And we have, after starting with 9th grade over the last 4 years, we have added an 8th grade floating mentor, just because of that philosophy to continue to work our way back. All of the experts talk about the young age, preserving and protecting that potential, which is certainly needed, and we certainly target it. But I also looked and said, our children are falling off the precipice right now. Let's start to address them right here so that they don't fall off that edge. And let's work our way back to all of the good work that's needed at the younger ages. So every grade really needs to be protected.
Mr. Chairman, just one comment before I leave, which is that I do have Board of Control at 11 o'clock, and Nan does as well. So that's the reason. But I strongly support the program. Thank you.
Councilman Baker.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you do. And, you know, saving one child is monumental. I mean, it's certainly every child is important. This report, if I'm understanding, it's the first time I've seen it and really understand it to this level. We're concentrating on those that are in the program. You know, on page 5, where you have enrollment ranging from 44 in Garfield as a low to Warrensville Heights of 84. How many children are identified, but perhaps not in your program? How many children could be in your program that are not? So I guess I'm asking is what percentage of children are we really helping in the entire at-risk that are in our schools?
Well, I think if you ask the folks in the school, they would say everyone would benefit from the program. And they did say that in our interviews. If you were to use specific eligibility type of criteria,
Right.
I think half is not far. Like if you looked at any one element at any one time over a 4-year education. So I guess I would have to really look into the parameters and focus on individual indicators to accurately answer beyond speculation.
So if I may, just to get an idea of how many children were impacting Garfield Heights as 44 in 2017, 2018, would you say that there's probably over 80 that you would like to have in that program? Because this represents half of those children that actually take advantage. And how can we then increase that number to enroll those that are in the criteria and are at the highest risk?
If I were able with my pen to make some choices, I would look to the absenteeism as my first indicator. I would go there, establish, we saw a third program-wide having chronic absenteeism. So that would be the first place I would look to. And then you're going to pick up off other indicators, additional non-absenteeism type of eligibility. So that would be my approach using data, but I speculate to give you real specifics.
Thank you for your work.
Sure.
Okay. Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Storman, you mentioned that you had done or of the CTAG, the state evaluation report, I suppose. Here's what I'm getting at. I know that there was a state CTAG program. Something was discussed, I know, quite a few years ago, but there was an attempt to implement it about a decade ago. Were you involved in that at all? Are you familiar with it a lot, or not at all, or a little bit?
I was not involved with it at all, but I did, when I started this work, acquire some of the writings and research and program kind of elements and started studying up on it. So there's a few published pieces out there, not many. There was a thesis someone did off one of the CTAG programs up in Northwest Ohio, and then Mr. Ivory had given me some information about his experience. So I came after the fact learning about it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. I was looking for a little information about the state program. I remember people talking about it in advance that were, proponents of it, and there was not the, I'll call it, political will to implement it. And then there came a time when there was enough support, and there was an attempt to get the program up and running for a few years. And then my impression is, although I haven't seen the evaluation, my impression is that what happened was we returned to a point where there was not the political will to do it anymore again. And I think that's where we are, and I'm just hopeful that that will come back around, and so that perhaps we can be part of a bigger program, hopefully in the near future.
yeah, there's no shortage of need, and the data indicates we need it, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brady, and you're spot on. That program was initiated by State Senator C.J. Prentice, as you well know, and Governor Ted Strickland at the time at the state level, and they advocated for a CTAG initiative. $20 million was peppered across the state of Ohio, Cleveland, East Cleveland, Lima, Massillon, all over, and those dollars benefited the community doing just what we're doing. And it was a Democratic initiative. And when the governor's office changed parties, then it did end. But in the time it was there, we saw Ted Ginn Academy, which many of us are familiar with. They have a 98% graduation rate out the door, and they're doing fantastic work on the east side of Cleveland. And that school system there is a direct beneficiary of those dollars our council president is referring to. So when I was asked by residents of Garfield Heights, can our program increase the graduation, to speak to Councilwoman Nan Baker's question, increase the graduation of our students and increase the overall academic standing of the school, I went back and looked, and that's when I found that not only what we were doing here, it was happening in these other school systems. And Ted Ginn Academy had 8 linkage coordinators. Well, we have 1. So imagine increasing not just our targeted population, but being able to serve the whole school. And maybe finding those things, those best practices, linkage coordinators, SchoolBased, and all the other things that you mentioned, and replicating what already exists in a Ted Ginn Academy. That school should not be the only school having the type of success it has. But again, there are a lot of political forces, as you mentioned, as to why those things aren't happening. But those that believe in what we're doing, that's the fight. To put those who believe in what we're doing, to see it expand and seeing it grow, because it exists already. It's no longer a fantasy or a theory. It's happening in Ted Ginn Academy in particular. So, yeah. Any further questions? At this moment, I think I saw Bob Irie in the room. Is he still here with us? Bob, would you like to come up and have a few words?
Good morning.
Good morning.
To the chair, to the council, and to those in the audience. I apologize for my tardiness. I actually had to, was the lead facilitator in my own intervention, which was a family matter. So I've been the family linkage coordinator all weekend, not for a student, but for my 31-year-old practicing attorney's son. So I say that parenthetically, that these type of dynamics transcend just our students, obviously, into everyday families. But I just want to, one, formally, thank the council, thank this body, thank the administration for its support of this initiative over the past 4 years. And I can speak to, from many platforms, from the origin of sitting in the office with Senator C.J. Prentice and 4 other project managers prior to this becoming a statewide. And I can relate to the drawing board of this initiative and then seeing its tentacles go out throughout the state and 13 school districts and 33 high schools, and to the point where Cuyahoga County has taken the lead to bring these resources and this type of support to what we have now in the initiative. So I formally thank all of those. And there's plenty here, the Department of Human Services, Family Children First Council, Robin Martin, her camp. There's some providers here, Mrs. Dorman. There's just so many hands in this salad that makes it successful. Also, obviously, linkage coordinators, but most importantly, the students, because if not for their receptiveness to what we are attempting to do, it couldn't be done. They would have to receive these interventions in order to execute the outcomes that we hope that they have. So they deserve credit for just their receptiveness to receive the help, the services, and the leadership that we're providing. In essence, I obviously don't have a formal. I'm very clear that Mr. Stormer provided the data, and the results of what the findings were of the case. I can speak more so from, like I say, from its origin to now, and then the role that I play in helping to kind of be the rudder and help navigate through all the processes. But I do know, and I'm pretty sure you at some point would want to hear directly from students themselves or parents of themselves. There are even some providers here. There's a superintendent here, which is also an anchor to this initiative, because there also would have to be a receptiveness of the school districts themselves and school boards, school board presidents, superintendents, teachers, union heads. Everyone has to receive what it is what we are trying to do and play a role and play a part in this, which thus far has been, I believe, outstanding and a model that I believe anyone in this country can follow to see this is how you navigate students academically, socially, and emotionally, not only through high school, but beyond, as students still reach back to us well after graduation for services, support letters, resources, and so forth. So this is definitely a continuum. But I would yield to you if who you would seek to have give their assessment, or even their testimony as to what impact this has had to them respectively, be it a provider like the Urban League and a superintendent in a school system, their parents here, their students. So we're pretty much at your disposal to provide an additional insight, even if it's anecdotal from the data that you've been presented.
Well, that's why we're here. We certainly have heard the hard evidence, and that means a lot to those who are going to be, who will be able to do a lot of positive work to support what we're doing. The anecdotal is equally as important to be able to hear that story. So we've heard a little bit about what this has meant to the teachers. If you would like to invite the principal forward, one of the principals, or whoever.
Here, but I think what I would yield is because I see Mr. Jolly, superintendent of Warrensville School District, and a friend, in more ways than one, by the purple, but would like to yield to him to give his perception.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. It's a great honor and privilege to be here today to talk about the CTAC program. I have familiarity with the program in Cleveland. I was a principal in Cleveland, John Adams High School, and I saw the great work it did there. I'm at Warrensville, and Miss Nettis, she has 84 of our students that are present and actively engaged in the program on a daily basis. What it does for us is it provides our students with a personal relationship with someone every day who has their hand on their child. If you looked at the data that they provided, the data showed you the achievement gap that exists throughout the country. That achievement gap is not due to any students' not ability to learn, but it comes from environmental factors. It comes from parents who are work 2 or 3 jobs. It comes from a lot of different community things. Well, what this program does is it eliminates some of the reasons why kids don't achieve, because it provides them with a resource, or sort of like a parent in school, someone who helps provide for the needs of the students, who can identify when they need things. They provide those. They provide them with security. They provide them with resources, which we have seen in our district close our gap in our district, where our graduation rate has improved over 16% in 2 years. And I attribute it a lot to the work of Ms. Nettis. So on behalf of our Board of Education, it is an honor to have them in our district, and we look forward to having more students engaged, because we do have our 8th graders that are part of the program, and we look to move it down some more, because we find that kids often get off track and starting 5th, 6th grade. And if we can catch them there, we anticipate that those achievement gaps will become smaller and more children will graduate from high school. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm open to any questions anyone might have.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Jolly. And I've heard many times some people say, oh, well, you're only working with the kids with 2-parent families, or what I'm hearing is we are subsidizing and supporting the parental responsibility. Thank you.
In addition, because I just noticed in the room, I just happened to look on the other side of the room. based on your successful acknowledgement of the need and especially expanding to other communities, this is the first year, based on your legislation, that East Cleveland and Shaw High School has been brought into the fold. We did a pilot last summer under the leadership of former colleague Anthony Hairston that brought the middle school into our Summer Bridge initiative. So East Cleveland is now full throttle engaged, planning on this summer of activities, as well as engaging the linkage coordinators, which we do and have done as a collaboration. So I just wanted to acknowledge the East Cleveland contingency and the school district to our family, and Dr. Corley, under her leadership, has been very instrumental in helping this transition. But as I look across, I also see Ohio Guidestone represented, and if someone would like to come and give their perception, because we are about to enter Summer Bridge season, and I'm sure that was a part of the presentation of how we want to continue the process, the progress, and that out of school time, that summer, sometimes, and I don't know what the data is, but you lose a percentage of what you did in the school year because of the summer and students not having that academic engagement. But we have a component that not only academically keeps them engaged, but socially, emotionally, team building. And Ohio Guidestone has been at the table along with Reading Ram, along with Golden Ciphers, along with, we just established a relationship with College Now, which will help boost that academic piece and college preparation, ATT prep, and so forth, awareness. But if either Jane or Al would like for a second, I think that would be germane to the testimony.
And as Ohio Guidestone comes forward, let me also acknowledge not only Councilman Anthony Hairston, Councilwoman Yvonne Conwell. There are many council members on this board right now who have been incredibly supportive and sought to bring this to their areas as well. So as was just said, we are coming to Shaw High School in East Cleveland. We are also coming to Cleveland as well, East Tech and Glenville, starting this summer and into the to the school year.
Thank you very much. My name is Jane Wood.
Al Klubert.
And we head up from Ohio Guidestone. We do 4 days of social emotional groups. So the social emotional learning groups basically pertain to, maybe you can help out, but basically the peer interaction. We're talking about conflict resolution, decision making, life skills. On the 4th day, which is very, very, very exceptional, I think that folks really, really like, is we take them to the ropes course, which is out in Olmsted Township, and it's our Marston Farms, and it's kind of like a camp, but also has a low ropes course. And our Tom Cummings and his staff from our residential treatment center do an excellent job with the kids as far as leadership skills, as far as team building. And I think most people love, or most of the kids have always experienced that have loved it. I don't know if anybody's here that experienced it from last summer, but it's fairly great stuff. I think for the 4 hours each day, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when we do the social emotional groups, I think the main thing that our clinical staff, we send in 2 clinical staff, and our main thing that they do is relationship building. We think that that's so, so important. And I believe, from the linkage coordinators, from Bob Ivory, I believe that that's what makes this work, is making a relationship and building that, keeping kids involved, engaged, and somebody actually, besides their parent or guardians, caring about them and believing in them and wanting them, to be great citizens for the future.
Excellent.
Anything else?
No, I just feel that it's a very valuable service to the community, and we were very proud to be a part of this effort and to help to close the achievement gap and help kids to be successful in their lives.
Great.
So we thank all of you. Thank Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to the chair, another valued partner in this community at large for years that we've had an opportunity to share in their expertise, and that is the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, whose executive director is here, and if it's Mike, would like to come forward, because we do these college experiences every year, and we have utilized the expertise of the Urban League that has helped navigate and guide us through some of our exposure opportunities, especially as it relates to HBCUs, and that piece is very much a value to our program. So, Ms. Mike.
Mr. Councilman and all council chairmen, we are honored to be here, and we want to applaud you on the success of the program and for serving the students of our community. It is very much needed. As you know, the Urban League just celebrated 100 years of service to this community, and we have been in the trenches along with you, serving to make sure that the achievement gap is being closed. We had the privilege of working with Senator Prentice in the original Closing the Achievement Gap, as you asked about, President Brady. And what I can tell you is that the Urban League at that time planned all of the historically Black college tours for the Closing the Achievement Gap program because of our 30-year history of doing that work and the relationships we have with the HBCUs. One of the components that I know we're very proud of and that we want to continue to work on with this program is when we take seniors to on the college tour, they are so prepared that we get actual college acceptances with full ride offers during our college tour. So on this last college tour that the Urban League provided, 50 students went. We had 8 students who were accepted as seniors during that time. So I also would like to say one of the questions that you asked from the Urban League's perspective was about, or others ask about what makes, what particular things are important. A caring adult, the developmental assets, 40 developmental assets, say the more developmental assets that a student has, the more successful that they can be in college, career, and life. And starting with that one person that they can trust and build a relationship with really opens up the exposure and the connection to all the other things. This is what we found over our years of doing work in this space. So we applaud the work that's done here. We're glad to see it expanding. We look forward to seeing how we can be of support to help and move it forward. And we certainly want to applaud you for your engagement and your involvement in it. Thank you.
Yeah, and Marcia, we thank you.
And I would like to acknowledge Ms. Pryor from the county library. We had a very robust discussion just a few days ago about engaging the county libraries, and particularly in Warrensville, Garfield, and Maple Heights moving forward. I had the opportunity to meet with the executive director, Ms. Feldman, a few weeks prior with another hat I wear, just about the same subject, engaging families more intensely with the plethora of resources that the county libraries provide. And so we'd like to thank Ms. Pryor if she wanted to talk about us moving forward. But also, I believe I would be remiss, and I'll probably hear about it later, if I didn't allow one of our students from our new partnership in East Cleveland, if they wanted to speak, or the linkage coordinator from East Cleveland. I believe I saw Mr. Coffey as well from East Cleveland, because it's important when we bring in new students, new partners, that they feel just as engaged, just as involved as the other 4 schools that have participated over the last 4 years. So from the great city of East Cleveland.
All right, well,
Good
first,
morning.
welcome.
Good morning. And thank you for having us. My name is Jessica Jones, and I'm a linkage coordinator at Shaw High School. And my students are eager to tell you guys about their testimonies for how the CTAC program has helped them, and just that we're very excited to be a part of Students of Promise, and what we look forward to in the future with working with you guys. And just to say thank you.
Great.
Hi, my name is Aisha Fleming, and I go to Shaw. The CTAG program has helped me tremendously. 9th grade year, I came in from the hospital, so, I was behind. And Ms. Jones really helped me, keep up with my grades and my grade point average and, everything that I needed so that I can push forward throughout the year and graduate to go to the 10th grade and stuff. And she's always a helping hand with any work that we need help with. She's always there. Anytime we need to use a computer, she's there. Anytime we need to print something, she's there. She's just always there. Like, no matter what we need help with, she's always there. And the program has kept us focused on our academic responsibilities in school. And I thank her for that because I don't know if I would have made it through my 9th grade year without her. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian. I also attend Shaw. So I was informed that I am the most improved from our group. My freshman year, I came in, I was expelled in the 8th grade, so my whole point in being in the program was disciplinary problems. My freshman year, I had honors classes. I fell off a little bit, and I think I was ranked 22 by the end of the school year. So I'm now upcoming junior, and this school year is my first school year ever without being suspended because of Ms. Jones. I moved from 21 to number 9. My GPA is now at 3.5, but it's because of Ms. Jones that I was able to do so, because she pushed me to take a history class, but she knew I hates. And because of her now, my GPA has risen, and I'm becoming a better student, basically, because of Ms. Jones. This is probably the best school year I've had. It's been some troubles, but it's not like it's going to be easy. But Ms. Jones is always there. I hate lunch because it's too noisy, so I eat in her class. And she's almost like a second mom. She's there to talk, give you advice. She'll tell you when you're wrong, no matter if you think you're right. But I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
So as you could imagine, the testimonies, the reflections, the anecdotal, we would be here till your next council meeting, literally, because I truly believe, and I can say from its incision to now, that goes on and on and on. So I think that is just a testament to all the work that everyone does to make this successful and the roles that everyone plays. But as you can see, how the students, receive and have benefited in so many ways over the years, and it's only increasing as we continue to evolve. And I would add, I believe even change in scope. I believe this is evolving from a targeted program for youth at risk to a youth leadership development initiative, because a lot of our students are transforming into leaders. I submit they were probably already leaders, and we just had to tap into their gifts, their abilities, their talent, and surround them with the support, resources, care, love, and direction that brought that leadership out. Because I can attest in all the schools, leadership roles that students from this program play, and how other students look to our students or look to this initiative, not only to model, but other programs have always patterned themselves. I used to get, how is it on family night, you have auditorium full of parents and students, and the general body of the school might have an equal amount. And that's because I believe of the work that we do in engaging parents. I'm not sure if there's a parent here or not, but I do believe that that's also a successful point of this initiative, is parent engagements who are all residents of Cuyahoga County. That would be probably my addition to this conversation. Clearly open to any questions if you have. If not, I yield my time to the chair.
I just want to make one comment. It's very heartening to hear the children talk about the transformation. For me, for a child who could potentially be looking towards dropping out and going in the wrong direction, but to now be oriented to walk across the stage, that's a critical transformation. And I say that, I think many of you know I am a funeral director. My family owns a funeral home, and it's something to watch. It's that the victims of gun violence, those who potentially can be involved in drug activity and all those things, and to sit with the family and time after time to hear that our children didn't finish high school. They may not have been working, but not finishing high school, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th might have been as far as they've gotten. Then to come in this office and have the professionals say that 9th grade was a targeted year, a year where the risk of dropout was the highest. A child may check out in the 8th grade, but it's not until about the ninth they have enough size to really think about actually not coming back to school, and to actually have a program initiative that actually impacts that. That makes me feel good. Feel good to go back and still see what's happening, still happening on a daily basis, and know that we're having even the smallest impact, and hoping to make it continue to grow. Absolutely. So again, I commend you, Bob, Ivory, and in fact your entire team and everyone here today for what they've done.
Thank you. And I don't know if Aaron, Linkage coordinator, Cleveland Heights, that you want to. Linkage coordinators are shy when it comes to come to the mic, but in school, they run it.
They own it. I know. I've seen them.
But Linkage coordinators are definitely the tie that binds us together. And I also need to thank and the support of your staff, county council's team, your team. A lot of students may not see and do not know a lot of the behind the dashboard work that goes into all of this. So your team has definitely been very engaging, supportive, helping us work through issues and helping us, with a foundation that maybe they don't get the credit, or students, families don't see that this is definitely a village that makes this happen. And thanks to your staff and Joe and everyone else that help us where we need it in order to help this be successful.
So if there are no other comments, questions, or anything else that holds our concern, let's take a moment. I'd like all the students just to stand for a moment. Stand, Let's get... And I just want you all to know that everyone here, from every elected official that you've seen today and others who are not here, it's the staff, the departments, everyone here, it is a village. And we literally are here to help you and continue to support you. And everyone here is so proud of the work that each and every one of you are doing just to continue to move forward through school and into your life. We are here to support you, to help you, and you can call on us at any time. So again, congratulations to all of your hard work.
And there's refreshments in the lobby.
Refreshments in the lobby.
My fraternity brothers. So
all right.
Juice and cookies. And
all right.
Well, thank you.
If there's nothing else that holds our attention, this meeting is adjourned.